Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When we took our break this morning, we had finished the direct examination of Mr. Stauch. At this point in time, the defense has an opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Stauch, and that's where we will begin. Mr. Tellini?
Good afternoon, Mr. Stauch.
Tellini?
I know this is emotional and difficult, so I'm going to try to keep my questions somewhat brief. If at any time you don't understand any of my questions, just ask me to repeat them. A lot of my questions will be kind of yes or no answers. And if there's anything that you think you need to elaborate on, once I'm done, Mr. Allen's going to be able to get up and ask you what's called redirect. And so be able to, anything that you think needs to be added on or clarified, Mr. Allen will have the opportunity to do that. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to kind of go back. I'm going to do this somewhat chronologically. I'm going to go back to 2014 when you first met Ms. Stauch. And at that point in time, you were going through a divorce, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that it had kind of been initiated but not finalized legally?
In South Carolina, there's a 1-year waiting period.
Yeah.
In a no-fault type divorce situation, and we were in that period. So,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So you guys had been separated, but you're waiting for the legality of the divorce to conclude.
Yeah, the final date of the divorce.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And were you in the military at that point in time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also one of the things that you did for enjoyment and recreation is you played softball.
Yes, sir.
How many teams did you play on?
I couldn't even give you a number. We played year-round.
Okay.
Myself and Landon and the defendant, co-ed, men's, women's league, whatever. We played year-round pretty much.
And that's when you first met Ms. Stauch?
Yes, on that fall 2013 team is the first time I ever remember having interactions with her.
And she was a pretty good softball player?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, later on, when you guys moved here, she ended up actually helping coach out the Whitefield softball team.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then in the spring, summer 2014, the relationship progressed to a romantic relationship?
Yes, sir.
And at that point in time, you were kind of more or less living by yourself.
Well, as I explained yesterday, I still owned my house. I call it the marital residence with Landon, and which sold in the August timeframe.
Okay.
So I was we had every other week custody arrangement with Miss Hyatt or with Landon at that point. So I was in my house 1 week at a time.
And then after you moved from your house, then Landon kind of was a primary caretaker, custodian of Gannon and Lena, correct?
She had the majority of the parenting time in the custody arrangement. Yes.
Okay. And then they would come with you guys for, a weekend here, a weekend. Was it every weekend or every other weekend or?
I got them, if I remember correctly, I got them every Wednesday night and then every other weekend would be my parenting time. And I usually picked them up from school, dropped them off back at school the next day or whatever.
Sure. And you guys were all this is all in Myrtle Beach, correct?
In that general area. Landon was a little bit outside of Myrtle Beach, but yeah, we were all in that general area.
Okay. And I think you described, yesterday, especially, at the beginning, the relationship was fun, fresh, and it was a good time. And it was, that'd be correct?
Yes, sir.
And it seemed it had progressed pretty quickly.
Yes, sir.
And then, so you start dating kind of in 2014, and then by 2015, you guys had moved in together.
Yeah, we got married in January 2015.
Okay. So move pretty quickly. And then at some point in time, you ended up filing for you to be the primary custodian parent of Gannon and Lena.
Yes, sir.
And you did that because you had some safety concerns.
Just some reservations about different things Landon was doing. And so I took it to the courts. Yes, sir.
I mean, you had some concerns that there was criminal activity going on in her house.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you had some concerns about drug use going on in the house.
Yes, sir.
As it relates to the relationship with.
And I'll bring it there.
I think I see where it's going, overruled.
And you had some concerns about, is it Mike Hyatt or Hoyt?
Hyatt.
And that was a person who you're just referencing in those phone calls, correct?
Yes, sir.
That you looked up and you'd seen his mugshots and so forth.
Yes, sir.
And that's who Landon was living with at that point in time.
Who was living with?
With Landon, that's who Landon was living with.
Landon, as far as I know, yes, sir.
Okay. And you thought it would be, because of those safety concerns, you wanted Gannon and Lena to come live with you and Miss Stauch.
Yes, sir.
because you thought that would be a safer environment for your two children.
Yes, sir.
And when you filed for custody, it wasn't just custody for you, but also Ms. Stauch was given custody as well.
When I filed for it, or when I filed for it, it was between me and Landon.
Okay.
So this is just to clarify.
Okay, but then she was eventually legally granted custody.
There was an arrangement where the kids in 2018, in the fall semester of 2018, we owned a house in Myrtle Beach, as I referenced yesterday. Because the defendant did not want to permanently move to Alaska, we kept that other residence as well. And the kids did stay there with the defendant for a few, most of that first semester, or that fall semester.
So for the entire fall semester while you were in Alaska, Ms. Stauch was a primary caregiver and custodian of the two kids.
In Myrtle Beach, yes, sir.
Myrtle Beach, yes. And part of that also was so they could also be in proximity with their mother as well.
Yeah, it's more complicated than the defendant just got custody of the kids. There's
No.
just a whole.
A lot of factors.
Yes,
were
a
in
lot of
place.
variables there. Yes, sir.
Okay. But you felt comfortable and you felt that was a safer environment for them to be with Ms. Stauch as opposed to being with Landon
At that time, yes, sir.
at that point in time, based upon your dealing with her, based upon what you knew of her, and based upon what you knew was going on with Landon.
Yes, sir.
And also, right at that point in time, when this kind of custody, shifted from Landon to you and Ms. Stauch, that's initially when you enrolled Gannon in counseling.
No, sir. That would have been after we moved to Colorado. As I testified yesterday, January of 2019 is when that began. Or, well, I didn't get here until February. So in the late winter, early spring portion of 2019. So you're talking 3 to 6 months later.
Second. Do you remember kind of that back in January of 2020, January 28th or 29th, you sat down, you had an interview with Detective Mark Riley?
Yes.
Do you remember telling Detective Riley, as soon as me and my ex split up, got divorced, and I got custody, I started taking them to counseling?
I don't remember saying that. If you have a
Are you? And I'm
transcript
looking
or something I can look at.
4702. You're aware that, you've had a lot of interaction with Mr. Allen, correct?
Yes.
And you're aware that a lot of the interviews that the El Paso County Sheriffs, as well as many of these phone calls that they made transcripts of,
Yes, sir.
when
Absolutely.
looking at that transcript, refresh your recollection.
Absolutely.
I may approach? You may. Does that refresh your recollection?
I mean, if that's a transcript of it, then yes, that's what I said.
So that indicates to you that you told the detective back then that you got Gannon in counseling right after the custody split, and you did that primarily because of the custody issue.
Yeah, and I don't know why I said that specifically, but the Dr. Burtek I referenced in this, that did not begin until, as I already stated, late winter, early spring 2019.
Okay.
So-
Can I approach?
Sure.
You may, yes.